Hello, you guys. Welcome to this week's episode of the Expand and Evolve podcast. I'm your host, Carly Pinchin, and I just finished up an episode all about human design, and I just found it so freaking fascinating, everything she just shared with me. But even before that, I had wanted to record this talking a little bit about masculine and feminine energies and relationships. I felt, honestly, I was trying to record this the other day. And then the dogs started barking and the kids came home and whatever. And so I feel like this is a better place to record it from because I feel just within my body and my heart. And so this may come across better than it may have that day. But one of my reels where I was speaking about separating and not just staying for the kids went, I would say, a little bit viral. Okay. Meaning that it's reached over 100,000 people. And a lot of those people are not my people. They're not the people who would understand where I'm coming from, my content, what I mean, and have placed a ton of judgment and hatred toward me and women in general. It's been men. And so this is why I wanted to talk about this, because I feel like what this is showing me, because I just went, okay, wow, there's a lesson here. I believe there's a lesson in everything. And when I was watching some of these comments come in, what I noticed was most of them, anyone who was getting mad and feisty, were men, mostly with fake private accounts or no followers, no one with a real account, or they were single dads. Okay. And the message behind that message, if you haven't seen it, you can go look on my Instagram. But the one that kind of went a little bit viral was basically saying that staying for the kids shouldn't be the only reason you're staying together. Staying for the kids is an amazing reason to stay together, but there should be more than that. There should be that you're choosing each other because you love each other and there's partnership, not like a jail or out of guilt where you feel like you have to be together just because you had kids together. That's not fair. And also, I don't think it teaches our kids a healthy model of what a relationship is. And that's basically what the video was talking about, which to me, I'm I know saying you shouldn't just stay together strictly for the kids, there's other reasons, could be triggering, but the things that they were coming up with from this was crazy. Just saying this is the problem with all women, and placing all this judgment. Someone messaged Daniel directly and was she's wicked, she's this, she's that, all this stuff he showed me yesterday. And I just went, oh my gosh, these men are really mad. And I just kept thinking, what are they so mad about? So I'm going to just speak because I don't really know where I'm going with this, except I need to get it off my chest. And I've tried to record little bits of videos to just post on Instagram, but I'm it's not working. I talk so much better when I can just speak freely. And so I figured a podcast is the perfect place to do this. But I wanted to speak specifically about what I see relationships becoming in the future and why masculine and feminine energies are so freaking important in the dynamic actually working and for partnerships to be able to last. Okay. So this is more if you want your relationship to last and you want a magical, perfect, sacred union, that's what I want to kind of speak about. But the reason I brought up the fact that I was just on that human design podcast was because she said, part of what I have to do in this lifetime is I'm here to break paradigms and shift paradigms and share things that maybe people right now don't fully understand and don't make sense because it's not the way that it is right now, but it's a futuristic way of seeing things. And I'm here to help basically help people heal and bring them to this awareness so that things can shift. So you can listen to that episode. That'll probably launch before this one does. So if you listen to it, you probably heard that part. And I just went, oh my God, I love this so much because it's what I feel. And as I navigate this situation of a separation and all of this stuff, I still feel in my heart, and I've always felt this way, this draw to relationship. Since I was really young, I was I'm going to find my husband and this partner. And for a little while, I was oh my God, was I seeking outside of myself a relationship my whole life, thinking that that was going to save me? And for a little while, I believed that. But what I've come to believe recently, and what I'm starting to believe even more, is that actually what's showing up for me is because relationships are this thing I'm supposed to do. I've always played mediator, any of my friends through my whole life. When they have relationship stuff, I've always been the mediator. I've always been there to listen to both sides, understand the man, understand the woman, understand what's going on in their relationship. And you can replace man and woman if you're in a same-sex relationship or if this reaches people who are. masculine, feminine, there's always going to be polarity of energy or the relationship won't work. Okay. So just know when I say man, women, that's what I mean. But in general, it's just, I've always kind of played that role. And I've always thought, okay, this is so interesting. I'm so good at this. Like I always thought maybe I'm supposed to be like a counselor or a mediator. I don't know. I just naturally do that. And this is just a side note that like life is not that hard. Like what you are naturally good at is your gift. Lean into it. You don't need to try to go find another gift and do something because someone else is doing it. Like your gift is your gift. Lean into that. And like that is your sweet spot. And then utilize that to pursue your purpose, mission, whatever it is. And so on this podcast, she also said, she was like, you're meant to speak. Like your gift and like what you're good at and what you're meant to do here is to speak. And you also have a rebellious state. So you do things differently. You see things differently and you're not afraid to stir shit up for people. And what this is so funny because I've obviously, if you use Instagram as a social tool, it can seem like, oh, I need to do this because this is working for other people. And I'm like, no. My sweet spot is my voice. I don't need to know how to do all these other things. I don't need to be good on Canva. I don't need to be good at any of this other stuff. I just need to speak and use my voice and it's going to reach the right people. And so I'm realizing this, and you guys who are watching my journey are probably noticing, but I feel like more and more I'm just getting so familiar and being able to step into my power and like what that really is. And I know, I'm like, it's my voice. And so she said me starting a podcast was the absolute perfect thing. It's also really funny because I ended up doing like a body healing session. I forget what they're called. Anyways, she does like body work and like helps do healing massage where she pulls energy out. Her name's Samantha. She's amazing. She moved to the island. Anyways, she had told me, she's like, you're supposed to be a talk show host or YouTube or something like that. And I went, that's so funny. And she had kind of said that. She was like, you're supposed to be on TV. Like, I don't know if it's like Oprah, kind of like you're sitting there and you're talking like a talk show host or like you're supposed to do on YouTube. I don't know. And I thought, oh, okay, whatever. And I just let that all go. And then one of my other friends messaged me and was like, I had a dream last night. You're a talk show host. And I was like, okay, this is so funny that this is showing up again. And then I saw a girl on Instagram and her studio that she had set up for doing interviews. And I went, the world is so different now. It won't even necessarily be TV, but I'm like, I can see it. This is totally going off sidetrack, but I'll get back to what I'm trying to say is I'm like, I can physically see it. Like this studio space that I'll create where I'll either have people in or I'll be talking. I don't know. But I'm like, I want you to know this because your superpower may not be just speaking. But I'm like, if I'm starting to realize that that's my superpower and I've always known this, it's also fascinating to me that my biggest fear was public speaking. There's no coincidence in that. So I'm like, look at where your ultimate fear is. Look at where that is in your life because it probably was there on purpose and you had to overcome it on purpose to get back to what your true gift is. And if you guys don't know my story about this specifically, I was 7 years old. I got picked to do a public speaking contest. Basically, I won for poetry. I won in the classroom. And then from the classroom, I had to go in front of all the grade 4s. And then I won from there or whatever grade I was in too. And then it was like, okay, now you go into like the primary kids and it's like 0 to 4 and you have to speak in front of all of them. And then when you win that, then you go in front of the whole school. And it was in front of the 0 to 4 that I went bright red, panicked, froze, and I couldn't speak. And so from that day forward, I was so afraid to public speak ever again because I was like, everyone's going to see me go red and this is so embarrassing that I froze and I didn't want to public speak. I would do anything I could to get out of projects, even into university, okay? And it wasn't until I had to start public speaking in the business that I'm in that it forced me to overcome that fear. And I'm no longer afraid. So just interesting because I'm like, if my gift is my voice, but using my voice was my ultimate fear. Like if you start to really look at that, like how powerful that is and how purposeful it is to overcome, to go use your gift and share it with the world, like there's no mistake. Okay. Anyways, so she said that on the podcast. And I was like, this is so amazing. I love it. It's so cool. And I also know that I'm learning, and this is interesting too, where I feel like everything is divinely placed in who shows up in your life. But at the reunion retreat, one of the guys who was there, Edward, he's amazing. We're going to do a podcast together, had said to me, he's like, you came to me in my journey. And I was like, what do you mean? And he's like, you're supposed to be a relationship and intimacy coach. And I went, what? And so the self-doubt started to creep in a little bit in the sense of like, okay, intimacy is something I haven't 1,000% mastered because I know I had a fear of it. And then it showed up in my last relationship. And I've realized for me how much I shut down in that space because of how our last relationship started. And so it's like that whole self-doubt of, okay, but who am I? If I'm going through a separation, who am I to help coach relationships? But what I'm realizing is I'm like, no. Me learning from like what led to the separation, I feel like I can help relationships either mesh back together or separate if that's the best thing for both parties. But what my hope is to bring relationships together and keep you together before the resentment gets so deep that there's no saving it. And that's the place where we were, where like separation was the only answer because I was unwilling to put in the work to work on it because I was so full of so much resentment and like so just angry and like closed off. Like I had completely shut off from even the opportunity of us ever working through anything. Like I was not open. And I'll totally own that on my side where it was like I was too resentful and too like shut down to even consider being open to us resolving anything. And when he started, we were talking about this actually last night, and he was like, when you were putting in the effort, I never met you. And then when he was putting in the effort, I couldn't meet him. And so it's like, I, in the beginning, tried so hard to get him to open up and like get him to use his, like be in his heart and like feel love and do all the things. And I was pushing and pushing and pushing to try to encourage that. And he'd always be like, I'm like an onion and I have all these layers and blah, blah, blah. And I'd be like, you're so annoying. Like, when are you ever going to let the layers down? And then towards the end, when I was like done pushing and trying to open things up and I was closed down, then he was trying to like put in the effort, but I wasn't open to receive it. And so it was like this push-pull energy between the two of us. And so I'm just realizing for me that in relationship, that polarity, you guys, is crucial. And I was listening to a podcast by Danny Morell. It was just a quick, like little 12-minute one earlier about masculine and feminine energies. And I just went, this is so true, because he was basically saying it's like, it's your own healing. Like you don't need a book and you don't necessarily need a teacher on this. You learn it and you learn how to balance the two through your own healing. And I feel like for me, I was able to operate and get a ton of shit done in my masculine, which can be really valuable. And like, we don't want to lose that. Like the masculine can be so powerful in the getting shit done, like actually getting things done in your life, pursuing a goal, chasing something, making shit happen. Like being in your masculine can be perfect for that. And then in your feminine, it can be seen as, and there's more to this, but for the simplicity of this, it's kind of like that nurturing, that caring, that loving, that being rather than that doing. So if you think about your masculine as more like you're accomplishing things and you're doing things, where your feminine can be seen more as like you're flowing and you're being and you're nurturing and you're like in your doing things that you really enjoy. Like if you're doing something you really enjoy, but at the same time, I'm like, even in reading, like I'm like, if you're doing it just because out of pleasure and enjoyment, maybe, yes, out of stillness. But if you're doing it with a mission to learn something and it's very mind focused, then it is still more of your masculine. Does that make sense? So like there is a little bit, you have to be mindful of like what energy are you doing from it. If you're doing it from like an accomplishment, like I got to do this because I got to learn and I got to go, that's more masculine. Whereas like your feminine might be like, I'm so relaxed and I'm just going to read a book and like be with me and enjoy myself. That can be different. Do you see how different those energies are? Anyways, so masculine, feminine energies, I feel like are critical in a relationship to work. And so if you are the woman, I need to take a sip of water. But if you are the female, and I'm saying this from my experience, okay? If you are the female operating out of your masculine, it doesn't mean your relationship is doomed. However, if you operate this way for a prolonged period of time, I'm just going to tell you, and this is through and through, this is what ends up happening. You will be full of resentment. So when I say, just think about it. Like if you are a female who is operating out of your masculine right now, which is like you're handling everything, you're doing everything, you're making shit happen. You could be the full provider. You could be holding down the household, getting everything done all the time, managing schedules, like everything is on you. The weight is on you. How do you feel right now? Because I felt stressed out, like I couldn't rely on anyone, like the world was on my shoulders, and I was fully in my masculine. I was just doing. I couldn't be and relax because there was too much shit to get done. So I didn't have space to be in my feminine because I felt like I constantly had to be doing. And on the other side of that, where like you could be totally in your feminine, where you're like, you're very nurturing and you're very loving, you could be in a flowy, healthy feminine, where the wounded feminine might be like you're overgiving. So you feel like you have to be the perfect wife, and that means all the meals are cooked and the things are cooked and all the things are handled and the kids are taken care of and all of this, and you feel like you have to operate that way in order to receive love or be deemed worthy, or like you're doing a good job. Does that make sense? Where that's not necessarily true. And so there's so much around the masculine and the feminine. But what I wanted to also point out is understanding that like the relationship you're seeking a lot of the time can be coming from either the model you saw from your parents or from a wounded place of the relationships that you were in previously. And so this is just how I like to explain things, is by my own experience. And then you can relate this back to yourself. Is for me, in my first real relationship, I was not in my masculine at all. I was fully in my feminine, but I was with a toxic masculine partner. And so when I say that, there's 3 types of masculine energy, same thing for female, okay? So there's the beta, alpha, and divine. And this is something that I learned at Awaken, these 3 types, and I think this is pretty common now for people to speak in these terms. But you can think of it as masculine and feminine, and then there's the beta, alpha, and divine. So the beta is kind of the passive. So imagine this as a female-male partnership, okay? So I go from super toxic masculine relationship where I deemed the masculine unsafe and abusive. So for me, I went, okay, anyone who's super masculine means that they can cheat on you, hurt you, and basically take advantage of you, because I was the overgiver. I was like, maybe if I cook all his meals and do everything for him and just like do all these things and make sure his bed is made and he's taken care of and he has all his food made and everything's clean and his laundry's done, which I was playing also the mother role. But if I do all these things for him, like, then maybe he'll love me. Then maybe he'll see I'm worthy. Then maybe he'll appreciate me. Just so you know, it doesn't work like that. Anyway, so we were in this relationship, and guess what? And this is super common, okay? So it's like you are doing all the things and you're like, maybe I should be appreciated. And then guess what happens? You get cheated on. And you're like, but I do all the things, and how can he not see this? And how can he not appreciate me? And then they cheat on you. Which now, even saying this out loud, I'm like, well, if you think about it and you're playing the mother role and you're being their mom, well, they're not going to be super attracted to you. They're going to be attracted to someone outside of your relationship who doesn't feel like mom, right? That just makes sense. Anyways, I digress. And then you go to the male-female version of this. If the female is in their beta, so that was just an example of, so the female in their beta, which was me, and then him being in his alpha masculine, right? Which is the really like dominating, like, I make money and I'm doing this, so like just do what I say type of mentality, or like, you know, that you can be seen but not heard. Like, I don't really need to give you any emotional support. Like, you're just there to basically have sex with and please my needs and do all the house stuff. But it doesn't feel like love. You don't feel fully seen, heard, and appreciated, right? And then on the other side of that, you can have the female who is now the alpha, which is the role I was playing in part of our relationship. And then the male becomes the beta, because again, everything is polarity. There's going to be masculine and feminine. There's going to be alpha and beta if you're in a partnership like this, until you can become whole, happy, complete within yourself, which is where you can become that divine masculine and divine feminine. Okay. So when you are in that place of, like, for me, I was being the alpha female, just so to give you some perspective of what made me seek this out. So I go from super toxic abusive relationship, and then I go, I'm going to find a guy that is safe. And safe to me then was finding somebody who I know isn't going to try to control me, abuse me, or cheat on me. Those were the most important things to me. So if I could find someone that was nice, which ended up meaning passive in my circumstance, in the relationship I chose after, which ended up driving me crazy in the end, because I'm like, why are you so indecisive? Why can't you make a decision? Why do you need to seek out opinions from everyone else? Like, why can't you lead? Why can't you be powerful? Why can't you be all these things that I purposefully sought out you not to be? Now it's his problem. When really it's like, when really it's me who sought out that relationship to begin with. And so it's like, here I am getting mad and resentful at the end because you're not the person I want you to be, but like, I sought you out to be the way that you are, right? So it's like taking accountability and not taking it so seriously. of like bashing yourself for it either. Like I didn't know what I know now. And so I sought out a relationship from a wounded place, right? But at the time, this was healing for me because I was able to see like not every man is going to cheat on you and abuse you. This was super important because at that time I was like, oh my God, is every guy just going to abuse you and cheat on you? And they're never going to appreciate you, right? And so I had that belief. And then I went into my marriage where I feel like it was a little bit more leveled out. I wasn't like super in my alpha at all. And then we were both working and like contributing and whatever. But then when I started bringing in the money and he wasn't contributing financially or contributing, and I didn't feel like he was doing the things I needed him to do to feel supported or any of that stuff. And then my emotions weren't being met and intellectually I wasn't feeling like I was being met. Then our intimacy like was impacted, and our intimacy was always kind of a thing in the beginning anyways. But I just want to talk on male-female partnership right now and like the masculine feminine energy piece, that when I went full alpha, he went full beta. And so if that is your role, where like you're top, like you're the income earner, you're the person who is bringing in the money, you're the person who's making shit happen, even if it's not money, like your partner could be bringing in the money, but you run the household, like you wear the pants. He could be passive and you could be in your alpha. And I just want to say, because most of the people who listen to this are female, if that's the way your relationship is, it's going to lead to resentment. And ultimately, if you are in your power, a separation, because you're not going to be able to deal with that forever. So I'm like, if you want to fix that and you do not want your relationship to lead to a separation, you need to start working on becoming, I would say, balancing the energies, but that's something that you can look at and be like, okay, well, how do I do that? It's not so much that, it's like, how can you become your divine self? Does that make sense? And so like divine masculine, divine feminine, whatever you are, if you're female, you want to be in your divine feminine. If you're masculine, like honestly, you want to be both because you need both. So it's like, it's harmonizing your divine masculine and divine feminine energy within you. And the only way you can do that is through healing yourself. So it's like when you start healing yourself, let's say you do the breath work and you do the meditations and you start figuring out who you are and you start uncovering where your like mother wound and father wound and all of this wounding actually came from. When you're able to acknowledge it, understand it, create self-acceptance for like how you've shown up in partnership, what's led you here. Something in you attracted these people to your life. And so a lot of the time, the reason you're attracting this type of person is because you're not consciously choosing. It's your subconscious that's mirroring and attracting a lot of the times the relationship from your parents. So it could be like a mom-dad thing that you saw mom and dad, or like your caregivers have that type of relationship. So you seek that out because that's what you feel is normal. That's what feels comfortable because it was your normal and it's how you saw love be given and received. And so that feels good to you. Even if it's not conducive to your growth, it feels good. And so you'll seek out a relationship like that. And so maybe you're seeking out a relationship that is like that. Or you, like me, had a really abusive relationship in the past. And so you sought complete opposite. And this doesn't necessarily have to be a reflection of your parents, but you're seeking out a relationship still from a place of wounding if you haven't gone in and done the work to release all that. And so I bring that up because it's just important, I think, before you can even heal your current relationship, to take a deep look at yourself and be like, okay, what in me attracted this? Was it out of me feeling like I can't trust men? Was it out of me feeling like I can't trust women? Was it out of me feeling like the only way that I feel loved is to overgive? And like by giving, it's the only way that I feel like I'm valued. By achieving is the only way that I feel like I'm valued and loved. Like you have to start reflecting on like what brought you here in the first place. And then it's getting crystal clear on that point of it. And then from there, being able to be like, okay, in my partnership right now, what's the dynamic? And are both parties willing to start doing what it takes to heal themselves? And it's not even really what I feel at this point is healing your relationship. I feel like that almost comes after. It's like you can do couples therapy and you can be on the same page. And I feel like getting aligned in your vision and what you want and what you're both working towards and all of that can be really, really valuable and helpful. But ultimately, to truly create that like sacred union that is full of unconditional love and a partnership that's going to last forever is to get crystal clear on who you are. Like you have to go in and do the healing work in yourself and then be willing to also do it too. And what I'm seeing right now, honestly, is this massive paradigm shift. And what I feel is happening is men are a little bit behind. Okay. Just in the sense of in terms of healing and being open, because for so long we have to remember most men were told their emotions are not safe. Like, boys don't cry, keep it in. Like, they didn't have space to have emotion. They weren't told it was safe. And we can't just only think about their parents in this generation, but also like the grandparents. Like, this is not a long time ago. It's only the last few years where we're making the shift to be like, hey, boys, it's okay to cry. Hey, boys, you're also a human and you have the exact same emotions as a female. Normal. Don't need to hide them. Don't need to act out in anger. Like, you can feel sadness. You can feel like you don't know your purpose. You can feel all these things, the same things females do. And we can come together and support each other and like love each other through this. This was not how most men were raised. So first of all, I feel like we need to give them, I don't even know if it's space, but patience, that like they're learning this for the first time for most of us. Like, if they're 25 and above, like, this is kind of the first season of men who are given the space to be like, hey, like, we will honor you and be there for you in you showing your emotion. Most people weren't raised like that. So we need to just remember that and be mindful of that. And for women, it's also the first time, I feel like, these last few decades in history where we don't need a man to physically provide monetarily to be the biggest reason we're together. And so you have a lot of women, and this is what I'm seeing, who know how to provide for themselves, who don't necessarily need a man to provide, and are finally okay to be like, this is not enough for me. Like, you providing financially is not enough. Like, I need I need you to provide intellectually, emotionally, and physically. And like, those three areas are super important on both sides. And so I feel like more women are okay saying that, like, this is what I need. And if these needs are not being met, then I don't want this partnership, because it's causing me more harm than good. And it's causing me more frustration than if I was just alone. And this is, again, a freaking paradigm shift, because it's never really been like this before. And so I feel like if men don't start to step into that of being like, oh shit, like, if I don't get familiar with who I am and get to know myself and be comfortable with my emotions and figure out who the hell I am outside of just making money and providing, like, relationships are going to continue to fail. And what I'm witnessing with a lot of people around me, and obviously since I've been outspoken about my separation, is so many women who are messaging me in a very, very similar spot to what I was in. And it makes me sad, because I'm like, we don't want to separate. We don't want to end relationships. For me, at least, I would love for my relationship to be, for us to be able to come together, for us each to be able to do the healing work, for me to be able to find my balance of not being an overbearing, controlling person out of fear. And like, oh, I got to find the guy who won't cheat on me. Like, no, I want to be able to just have a partner who, because we love each other, I'm not even worried about that. You know, like, does that make sense? So it's like, I'm not seeking out of a wound or a need to control out of fear. I'm picking a partnership and we're choosing each other out of a place of like, our vision and mission and values align. And we're choosing each other and like learning what unconditional love truly means. Because I can say for me, I feel like I'm finally learning that. But when I chose to get married, it was not unconditional love. It wasn't. It was attachment. And I got married out of attachment, and I got married out of the way things looked and like ticked these boxes. So these things looked good. I wasn't consciously choosing. Does that make sense? Like, or subconsciously, I didn't realize what I was choosing. I don't even know what the right one would be. But ultimately, it's like, I sought out a relationship that met, like, looks cute on Instagram, looks good looking. He's nice. He's not beating me. These are check marks that I'm doing. He has a good family. So like, things are good. I didn't know at 21 or 22 to be like, what's your mission? What's your vision? What are you like doing in life? What are your goals? What are your aspirations? Like, do we align? Do we see the same thing for family? Do we see the same thing for parenting values? Do we see the same thing in terms of our money situation and what we want in this life? Those things matter a lot. And I didn't know to talk about them. And I also thought it made me shallow to talk about them. And I'm sure a lot of people, if you're the same age as me, about 30, you didn't know to ask these things or look for these things either. And I think what's really frustrating to me about the post that went viral and all of these miserable people that are commenting is, I'm like, they don't understand yet that like, your relationship, this was in another podcast I was listening to. It might've been the Robin Sharma one with Danny Morell. And he had said, 90% of your joy and happiness comes from the person you decide to spend the rest of your life with, or the person that you're in partnership with. So when people are like, oh, your partner shouldn't make you happy, like, no, you shouldn't be outsourcing your happiness to a partner and expecting a relationship to bring you happiness. However, if every area of your life is happy and then when you're with your partner, it's not, it's pretty clear that there's something going on in the partnership that's not working. Like if you're happy in every other area and then you are with your partner and you're not happy and it's the only place that makes you miserable, like obviously there's an issue there, and it's not life and it's not you outsourcing your happiness. It's something to do with the partnership. And so I feel like that's really important and something that like we may not, and generations before us may not have found value in or understood. Like I know for me, my grandma just stayed. Like he was a jerk, but they would stay forever. And so it's like that's what for a lot of us we were modeled, was these people who stayed forever because it's like we made the commitment that we got to make it work and stay forever. No, like I feel like that's shifting and more women are choosing not to do that. So it's like if you're going to be a D-bag or a douche and you're not going to give me any emotional needs met, like I'm not just going to stay with you through that. So it's like, it's just bringing awareness to the fact that like both of us, all of us need to do healing on this planet, like men, women, everyone. But specifically, I'm just seeing that like most men are a little bit behind. And so I would love, love, love to see partnerships last and men and women be able to figure this out together, because ultimately what it comes down to is like you chose that partner out of a mirroring and a familiarity and relationship of what you thought love was. And you could have chose it and it could be just attachment. It could not even be true partnership. But it's just getting familiar with the fact that like, okay, this is what we chose, but hopefully your partner can also get conscious and be like, okay, well, I'm willing to heal myself. Because what I'm seeing happening right now is a lot of women are the ones taking the initiative to start growing and shifting and learning and expanding and healing. And that's amazing. But if men are not getting on that same trajectory, like they're getting left behind. And not so much like behind for life, obviously, but I just mean in the relationship they are. And if they don't start to step up and do that work, which can take time and they need, obviously this isn't an overnight thing, but if they're not taking those actions to do that, like you guys are going to grow apart. And so I think it really just comes down to the fact that like, if you want to grow together, you need to be on the same vision and mission and like be talking through this and growing together. Otherwise, you are going to grow apart. And I feel like we are going to keep seeing relationships split up. And at this point in my life, I'm like, I don't know if it's the worst thing on the planet that relationships are separating either. Because I'm like, if people grow apart and then come back together healed, whether it's together, like the person they were already with, or with another person that is healed and it's coming from a conscious choosing, not out of a subconscious attachment, like relationships and this whole planet, I swear, could heal. And this would heal because our children would witness true loving partnership. They would see what it means to truly be loved, what it looks like to be respected and loved and chosen. I know for me, I had a major chosen wound. I wanted to be chosen. This doesn't, like, I had this, I didn't know this until after that. I was like, holy shit, this whole time I wanted to feel like you chose me. And whether that's a partner who's going to make me feel like that or not, I think what I had to do first was choose myself. Before I could let someone else fully choose me, how could they ever fully choose me when I wasn't choosing myself, when I wasn't being fully me? How could I expect another person to be able to choose me? The same way, if I can't give myself love or like give and receive love myself, how am I going to allow somebody else to give and receive love to me? You can't. And so I think what I'm learning is like, had I known what I know now, then I would have known that seeking a relationship outside myself to make me feel safe, protected, provided for, this is all types of relationships. But like if I wasn't seeking safety, happiness, providership, all these different things out of a partner outside of me, if I would have just known that like, hey, it's an inside job, you need to figure this out and give yourself these things first before you can attract a partner that is an energetic match to you, I would have known to do that work. But I didn't know that. No one taught me this. No one said like, hey, by the way, before you get in a relationship, people talk about like, you need to be single. That's not helpful. Being told that you need to be single doesn't make sense. You're like, so I need to be alone? Like that never logically made sense to me because I didn't understand why that was valuable. Now that I've been single and I'm on a healing journey of finding myself, knowing myself, understanding myself, doing the work to be like, hey, why are you so uncomfortable being alone? Why do you have so much wrapped up in needing a partner? Why do you feel like you're less valuable, that you're not taken or wanted? That's a real thing. And I've noticed it for myself is like, I realized that like me not being in a partnership, I'm like, oh my God, nobody wants me. That's not true. But internally, like that thought did show up for me where it was like, oh my God, nobody wants you. You're alone. What if you never find anyone? What if you never have anybody who wants you? You shouldn't be in a relationship out of that space. Like imagine, and some of you may be in a relationship out of the pure fact that you're like, okay, somebody chose, like I'm in a relationship, so it means I've made it and I tick something off my ticky box list of like things to do in this life and like that's good enough. And maybe that's fine for you. But for me, I'm like, I want a relationship, and I feel like this comes back to like my purpose here on this planet is I'm realizing so much that I'm like, no, I'm actually supposed to be the person to help basically create the vision of what a relationship is supposed to be. And for many of us, we have never, ever in our lifetime seen a relationship the way a relationship is supposed to be. I want you to reflect for a second on your mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, aunts, uncles, whoever in your closest circle, your family, whoever you grew up around in terms of relationships. Do you have a relationship you can look up to and say like, wow, I really want that? Like that seems like the perfect loving partnership and relationship. Because I can tell you for me, I don't think I had a single representation of what that looks like. Not one. So when I see that and then I go, okay, and I work with a lot of people and I see a lot of people and I've observed a lot of relationships, our kids and what they're seeing, the relationships around them grow up, what they grow up around is what they set as the standard of what a relationship should be, and also what they're willing to accept into their own life. That's why you see so many people who were abused as kids get into abusive relationships. That's why you see so many people who had to chase love and try to get it and do things to receive it from their parents, get into a partnership where they need to do things and feel like they need to achieve things or accomplish things or do these big things to receive love. You repeat the patterns that you grew up with until you do the work to unravel it all and heal it all and release those wounds. So if you're still haven't done that work yet, which most of us probably hadn't when we got into a relationship, the whole point of these people getting mad at me on the internet, I was like, you guys I can't believe you don't see how important the relationships that we model to our kids are. And so when I say that point of like, I feel like we can heal this freaking planet through the relationships that we model to our kids, is because if our children grow up seeing relationships that are full of unconditional, truly unconditional love, that are built on respect, that their missions and values are aligned, that there is true love there, romantic love, meaning hugging, kissing, closeness, affection, support, having each other's back, loyalty, like all of these amazing qualities of what a true relationship should be. I call it like a sacred union, like that sacred union. Imagine what our kids would grow up feeling they deserve. And that's the biggest thing for me is like my kids, when I made this point about my kids, is because I feel like it's my responsibility to show them something different, to show them a true loving relationship and partnership so that they know that that's what's to be expected in a relationship and they don't settle or accept anything less than that. Meaning they're not going to allow how I was treating their father in the last year and being super cold and off-putting and like the tension that we had in the house and me not being willing to like, I wasn't respecting him. I wasn't honoring him. I wasn't letting him lead the way a masculine should because I didn't trust him. And it wasn't that I didn't trust him that he wouldn't cheat on me, but like because I had been leading for so long, for me to let go of that control was really, really hard. And you might face that if you're in that same dynamic right now. It might be tough. But the only way I feel like that could happen is he needed to step into who are you becoming? Do your own healing. Go pursue whatever it is in your life that you need to go pursue. And for us, that meant separate. And like he's doing it now. Like he's doing the work. He's trying to figure out what he wants to do. He's doing all the things. But us being together, he wasn't taking any action. There was 4 years he didn't take the action. Us separating, instantly taking the action. And so that's where I mean, sometimes the separation doesn't have to be the worst thing on the planet. You could even decide that you're taking space and then coming back together. It doesn't matter what your dynamic is, and you don't have to separate in order for this to work. But it's getting really crystal clear on like, okay, things need to shift, and you can 1000% have these things shift while staying together. Like if both of you know you're choosing each other, you want to be together, you don't need to separate to make this happen. But you can notice like, hey, our energies and this is like not helpful. And I'm seeing that I'm becoming super resentful and I don't feel like I respect you right now, which is impacting our intimacy. And I don't want that. Like, I want us to have an intimate, loving partnership. So I'm just letting you know, like, these things, like, they have to start shifting. And whether that's referencing a book, having him start doing the work, if you need to give up control and let him start leading in certain areas, like, whatever that looks like for you guys, it's bringing awareness and having that conversation first. But I think I'll just end with this. And I feel like this was a little bit scattered because I didn't know where I was really going, but I hope it was helpful, is I truly believe that it's our job as parents and as role models for our kids to model healthy relationships. Because if our kids grow up in that healthy, loving environment, and not that you need a partner to create this, right? Like right now, what made the most sense for us was creating this healthy environment separately, because us together was getting toxic as F. Like the tension, that energy, like they feel that. They feel that. And I didn't want them witnessing that as a normal thing. So for right now, it felt like a better thing to be separate, where they can see mom happy, healthy. They can see dad happy, healthy. And then when they see us interact, we're friendly, we're nice to each other. I respect him again as a person. For a little while, I couldn't. And so it's like they're seeing that, which is healthier to me than a romantic relationship that they witness and think that that's the norm. And I just believe that, like, as a collective, if we really prioritize this, like, go heal yourself, do the inner work, start prioritizing that so that you can heal and be your absolute best self that is not acting out of reaction or wounding. You're like really honoring from your heart space. That, like, our kids are going to grow up with such a higher expectation of what love is, and not even expectation, just like a understanding of what a true loving partnership is, and they won't settle for anything less. So many people are still in really, really loveless relationships, getting treated like crap. There's no love. There's no intimacy. Like, that's the one thing that your partnership should give you. And it's funny because I was like, how am I supposed to be an intimacy coach? And I'm saying this all to you guys as like, market here first. I guess this is what I'm supposed to do. But I've just realized that I'm like, if your communication is off, your intellectual connection is off, your intimacy is going to be off. And so as a female, especially, like, if those needs are not being met, it impacts your intimacy. And a lot of men will be like, I just want to have sex to connect. It's like, no, I need to connect with you mentally first, through communicating first, and then physically that will come. But it comes from connection and communication before intimacy, especially for women. And so I feel like if men could understand that, it's like most of them, it's not that you're not wanted. It's like you need to connect first before sex even becomes a thing. Anyways, what I was trying to say was there's a million people you could be friends with. You can have a handful of friends. You can have 20 friends, 15 friends, 100 friends that meet all these kinds of needs. For most people, unless you're in an open relationship with multiple partners, which I have a whole opinion on too, with your one partner, your one person you choose to be with for life, that's your intimacy partner. That's the only place in your life you can have that type of intimacy. I just feel like it's really freaking important. And don't you want that? Like, I have so many people that I hear from too, that these people that were writing me, and I'm like, you're willing to settle on like your whole life and abandon that idea that like intimacy isn't for you, connection isn't for you. Like, do you really believe that? You have friends that give you more connection than your partner. That's not okay. Your partner should be this amazing sacred union, like your best of the best friend. And maybe you're in a hard season right now where that's not the truth for you right now, but you're willing to make it work. And I would just say, have the open, honest conversation with each other, because I would love nothing more than to see relationships actually last. But I don't think it should be at the expense of like settling and being okay with there not being intimacy and not being that deep, deep connection, because that ultimately is what a relationship is about. Like, you want to talk about evolving and expanding. You're supposed to do that in partnership. We're supposed to mirror each other's wounding to help each other move through that and heal it together. That's the purpose of partnership. Partnership should trigger stuff in you, but then you work together to grow through it, not separate just because you're triggered. And that's a whole other thing too, where it's understanding like your partnership can be your greatest teacher in life. So don't run from it. because if things are getting hard right now, like have the open, honest communication. The only time I'd say separation is the thing is like if both parties you've tried and you've tried and you've tried and they're not willing or open, then sometimes separating could be the thing that like sends them on the trajectory to become who they need to be. And even for you, it could be the thing that sends you into your deep healing work by having to be alone if you've never been alone before, to realize like you can't expect your partner to meet all your needs. You need to have those needs met within yourself. And so that's where I'm saying like separation doesn't always have to be the worst thing. It could be actually really valuable and you could always come back together stronger than ever. But ultimately, you need to be willing to figure out who you are. And if you have only ever been in partnership and you've allowed that to kind of all fall to the side, like I did, why am I going to cry? I feel like I've been so scattered this podcast and I'm sorry because I'm getting tired, but I'm also going to start crying. Like I didn't know, you guys, I was in relationships since I was 14. Like I was seeking love outside myself. I was seeking to be loved by another. And my biggest thing that I'm holding true to right now is that by me figuring out and finally understanding what it means to love myself wholly without the attachment of a partnership making me feel like that makes me worthy or complete, I know that the next partnership that I am in is going to be everything I've ever dreamed of and more, or it's going to be a lesson learner. If there's something else I need to learn, fine. But I already know through things that I've experienced that I'm like, it's going to be, I feel like it's my duty to like go showcase this and like learn it and do the learnings and the teachings and then create this partnership to be able to show people like, this needs to be your standard. This is real. This is possible. This is your one life. Why would you settle for anything less than that? And so the only way I feel like I can do that is to continue doing that deep inner work on myself, becoming whole, healthy, complete, all on my own. And then when I attract a person from this place, it's not going to be out of wounding. Even the person I attracted after Daniel, which I need to do an episode about, I was craving so badly to feel wanted, chosen, and safety and security in terms of like protectorness, like protector energy. And he totally gave me those things. But there was a shit show of other stuff that showed up. And the reason that happened was because even though I've been on this healing journey, I was seeking specific qualities out of another person. And through that situation, I finally realized, like, because you hear masculine and feminine energies and that the man is the provider and like the woman is the nurturer and blah, 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 blah. It had me seeking the providership outside of me, the protector outside of me, the safety outside of me. And it finally made me go, holy shit, this whole time you needed to learn how to give yourself that safety. You needed to figure out how to be grounded in yourself and feel safe, protected, provided for on your own. Yes, a man can give that to you 1000%, and there's nothing wrong with wanting that from a man. But if you haven't yet been able to figure out how to feel grounded and like regulate your nervous system and feel safe on your own, if you seek that from a partner, I'm just going to tell you it's probably going to blow up. And it just so happens that I hate the word narcissism too right now because I just feel like that's so overused. But a lot of narcissistic traits provide that, like, I'm the knight in shining armor. I'm here to save you. I'm here to provide for you. I'm here to protect you. And when you seek those things out, those are all amazing qualities, but you can miss a bunch of the other things because you're so set on getting those needs met, you miss all the other things. So I will just say from my experiences, when you seek anything outside of you, I feel like you're met with realizing why you need to find it within yourself first. And so whether you're in partnership or not, you can go become whole, healthy, happy, and complete on your own. And if you're noticing that you've put all your needs to the side, have a talk with your partner and be like, I need to start prioritizing me again. Because otherwise you're going to end up really lost. And it could really mess with your partnership and the way things are. And could end up leading to a divorce. And like, I just would love for people to not do that. Like I see so many women start caring for themselves after they separate. And I'm like, I did the same thing. Like I started taking care of myself while we were still married. But like, you could also do these things like, hey, I need time to read a book. hey, I need time to do this. Like, I've stopped doing this for me and I love doing this for myself. Like, I need to do this for me. Have that conversation with your partner now before you're resentful and it's too late and now you want to separate. Like, do it now. Same thing with your partner. Like, hey, what do you need to feel like your needs are being met? What areas of your life do you feel like you're not being you? What areas of your life do you feel like you've pushed to the side in our partnership that's made us maybe kind of like fall away from who we really were as individuals before we came together? How can we start being who we truly are and showing up in our partnership like that so that we don't lose ourselves and we don't end up thinking that a separation is the answer? Does this make sense? So with that, I will just say communicate with each other. Have the tough conversations. You can be like, I'm like really feeling like I want a divorce. We should probably talk about this. Because for 2 years, I kind of kept it to myself that I was like having these thoughts. I didn't know how to bring it up. And then when I did, it was like I was so shut down emotionally. Wasn't even open to working on anything. So I would say while you still like the person you're with, have these tough conversations and start figuring this out before it's too late and you can't even connect with each other. And if you're at that point of like disconnection, try to rebuild it. And if you know your answer is already within you, like, I would just tell you, like, it doesn't mean it's the worst thing in the world. And it can actually be really beautiful for both of you, for your own expansion and your evolution and your growth. But my wish for you and my wish for all partnerships is that we'll consciously start working on ourselves and be able to create those amazing, beautiful partnerships that our kids will witness and they will grow up to be the change. So with that, thank you for listening. I'm sorry I was all over the place for 50 minutes. If you stayed here, I love you. Thank you. I really need food and I need to start realizing that like I shouldn't start recording off of a single thought while I'm hungry because then my brain goes a lot of different places. But I also had this, like, I really needed to talk about this. And part of that human design episode, or something I was listening to right before, had said, you can't plan what you're going to say or it doesn't work. It has to just be speaking from your heart. And I felt like that would be the perfect time to just talk. So hopefully parts of that were helpful. If they were, share it with your partnerships in your life or your friends who you know are going through it right now. I feel like this is happening kind of globally. It's like a freaking epidemic of relationships and tons of them are ending. And not that that's the worst thing in the world. It could be the best thing in the world. But I feel like if communication was at the forefront and people started asking and having these hard conversations first, they may be able to save their relationship instead of creating more separations and more divide, and instead more union. And that's what we need. So if you have someone that you're thinking of, send this to them. And my wish is just for people to become just honestly their happiest, healthiest selves, whether that's within themselves or within relationship. But I feel like we can heal the planet that way. So thank you so much for listening. I love you guys, and I will see you in the next episode.